These are some of the storage units where Russia houses its atomic warheads. Satellite images are a key tool for the world to keep an eye on the nuclear sites dotted across the country. As Russian President Vladimir Putin suffers losses in Ukraine, he has suggested that he was ready to use his nuclear arsenal.
Мы, безусловно, используем все имеющиеся в нашем распоряжении средства. Это не блеф.
A nuclear strike is still widely seen as an unlikely scenario, but Western officials have said they are concerned, and President Biden warned the world could face the prospect of an Armageddon. So how would a Russian nuclear strike play out?
It's not like there is a big red button on the president's desk.
By looking at a map of Russia, we can learn a lot about how Putin would activate his atomic force. These dots represent the known locations where Russia houses some of its nuclear weapons. Bases like these have been identified by analysts who monitor nuclear arsenals using satellite images and other sources. The red ones indicate sites where tactical nuclear warheads are stored. Typically, these are lower-yield weapons used on delivery systems with a range under 310 miles. And the blue dots represent where some of Moscow's strategic weapons are deployed. These have more power and can travel up to about 9,000 miles. If Moscow decided to launch a nuclear attack, many Western and Ukrainian officials believe it would turn to tactical weapons.
Normally, it is assumed that strategic weapons are the last things you touch.
Hans Christensen is the director of the Nuclear Information Project and has been studying Russian nuclear weapons for decades.
The assumption is that tactical nuclear weapons, to the extent that they would escalate to nuclear use, would be the first that would be used.
Russia has 2,889 warheads in storage, according to American analysts. That's almost 1,000 more than the US. And even those tactical weapons can be very powerful and destructive. The RN-40 gravity bomb, carried in jets such as these, has the same estimated power as 30 kilotons of dynamite. That's more than the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, at about 15 to 20 kilotons, and much less than Russia's strategic weapons. These intercontinental ballistic missiles, for example, can have a yield of 300 to 800 kilotons. A strike using those weapons would be enough to destroy any major city, according to Christensen. If Russia was to actually deploy tactical nuclear weapons at these sites, it would first have to tackle some logistical challenges. That starts with retrieving the warheads from the storage bunkers or units that they're housed in.
Those weapons are all in storage facilities.
Pavel Podvig is a Geneva-based nuclear weapons expert who tracks Russian storage bases.
These are normally some distance from the delivery systems.
Take this site in Belgorod, near the border with Ukraine, for example. On a nuclear order, the site personnel would have to retrieve the warheads from bunkers. Then they would load them onto trucks in special climate-controlled containers and transport them to an airfield or designated point near a missile base like this one. Once they arrive, they would then need to be installed on a launcher or airplane, so actually deploying them for combat could take many hours or up to a few days, military analysts say. That whole process would be very hard to complete without other countries realizing, as movements are being tracked by intelligence teams, according to defense experts. So Russia appears to have taken steps to be less visible.
If you look at the satellite photos over these nuclear weapon storage sites, they typically have sort of a roof or a garage at the entrance. So any truck that drives up goes into this garage, so you can't see what they're loading on board.
But increasing the chances the message of a strike would spread is the multiple personnel involved along the way. The group responsible for Russia's nuclear weapons is a special unit called the 12th Chief Directorate. Analysts say the individuals in that force could potentially oppose strikes.
The military who would be part of that process, they would have a chance at least to offer their opinion on that plan and whether it should go ahead.
If movement at the facilities was detected, the West could respond in a number of ways, according to military analysts. One scenario is that countries could target Moscow's storage bases, which carries huge risks, while another is imposing more sanctions. Strategic nuclear weapons like this intercontinental ballistic missile are even less likely to be used, but hypothetically, they would be much quicker to deploy.
They're standing in their silos, the missiles, or they're on board ballistic missile submarines, and they're loaded with nuclear warheads, ready to fly in a few minutes.
However, before any of that, Putin would need to actually order a strike, and there's a series of steps that need to take place within the Kremlin for that to happen. The process is secretive and hard to monitor, and could even have changed since the Ukraine war began. Defense analysts have made an educated guess how it would unfold, based on documents and sources.
The theory is that that there are three people that need to be involved in an actual launch of Russian nuclear weapons: the Russian president, Putin, and the Minister of Defense, and then also the chief of the armed forces. They're supposed to have three briefcases, so to speak, electronic communication devices they can use to activate the nuclear option.
Some defense experts believe that 2 out of 3 of those officials would need to agree for the strike to be carried out.
If that is in fact the setup, then it's very different from the American setup, where the president has the sole authority to launch this, and he doesn't need approval from anyone else.
In addition to the chain of command, Russia has a strategic planning document, or military doctrine, which lays out how nuclear weapons could be used. The document says it allows the use of nuclear weapons if they, or other types of weapons of mass destruction, are used against it, as well as in the event of aggression that threatens the existence of the Russian Federation. The interpretation of that document rests on the shoulders of Putin, who has already said the territorial integrity of Russia may be threatened, and has claimed the annexation of 4 Ukrainian territories. When asked if Russia could use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told the Wall Street Journal, "We consider such inflated nuclear rhetoric unacceptable." But with Moscow facing setbacks in Ukraine, officials and military analysts say the use of tactical weapons can't be completely ruled out.